The houses are terrible.
And house shopping is the worst. Because everything you
Yeah,
want, you can't afford.
we drove by a couple yesterday that were like we found on Redfin or whatever, and like the houses are nice, but the area is sketchy. So
Yeah, exactly.
All righty, Brad, are we good to go? We live?
We're alive.
Awesome. We're going to go ahead and get started fast today to make sure we're as impactful as possible. So for those that are joining, looks like we got about 100 right now, which is phenomenal. Drop your name, your company, how long you've been in sales. We're going to be using that chat quite a bit today, and we're going to answer a lot of your questions you have throughout this webinar. And perhaps at the end, if we have time, we may be able to get a couple people to come on stage and talk with Brian and the team live. But the reasons you should stay on today, because I know sometimes we all get distracted and we hop off and we have a million things going on. Three main reasons. Number one is that you get to ask Brian Burns your number one pipeline questions that are causing you pain and suffering. He's going to talk a lot about turning pipe fiction into pipe fact. So whether it's the chat, whether it's polls that we have, or other things going on, you get direct with Brian, one of the OGs in the sales world. He runs the brutal truth about sales and selling. We also have a featured speaker today that you see up here, Stephanie Joyce. She's the AVP of sales at Commvault, which is a high-flying cybersecurity company. So you get to learn from your peer, which is fantastic. And then last but not least, probably the best part, why you should stay until the end, is that Kelvin, our CEO, who you see on stage here, has something special that he's gonna give you guys free access to. So Kelvin, on that note, what is that and why should they stay till the very end?
Yeah, so second book coming out called The Sales Trap Prevention Playbook, really talking about the 13 traps that cause deals to shrink, stall, die on the vine. Part 3, we're going to give you guys exclusive access to part 3, where we describe all 13 traps. Think about the commodity trap, being single-threaded, the science project trap, but we're going to list out the best-in-class strategies that has worked well for us at Brevity, some of the logos you see behind here, and we'll give you exclusive access to part 3. Book is coming out mid-July, Audible, Kindle, Barnes & Noble's, Amazon. So super excited.
Perfect. And then for those of you who have not joined one of our webinars before, we always pick a very specific topic. It's around helping sales teams and reps where they're struggling, where deals are getting stuck, and some actionable ways to improve. We do live interaction, we do role play sometimes, but it's a great way to learn from your peers. It's really about you, not us talking the whole time. So getting into it, what are we going to be talking about today? I mean, right now, it's the middle of Q2. So I'm going to assume here that there's probably some deals stalling or slipping in your pipeline, and you might be hearing some potential excuses from your team about where those deals are at or how much they're worth, etc. So we want to start off with a quick poll. Brad, if you can help get that up on the screen there. What is your biggest pipeline challenge right now? So you got no decision. So basically status quo, they do nothing, losing to direct competitors, or getting ghosted, which is our favorite. And if it's other, make sure to put that in the chat. This is always cool because you can see it real time as well with who's answering. We got getting ghosted in the lead. No decision coming in pretty hot there, coming in strong. Let's get some good interaction too. We got well over 100 votes so far, so this is actually a good poll data. So looks like getting ghosted is going to come in for the win, about half of the vote. So that's never a fun thing. No decision, second after that, and then losing to direct competitors. So thanks for sharing this with guys. We'll keep using this for questions throughout today. But I think in general, before I hand it over to Brian for a couple minutes, is the reality is with pipeline, like Kelvin, right now, I could go into our HubSpot and I could put an awesome 500K deal into the pipeline. And maybe I feel good about it. Maybe I have done my homework, but maybe I just am in a good mood that day and I add a couple 100K there. So that's the reality that we live in today's world with the pipeline. So today, what we're going to talk about is best practices for sales leaders to navigate all those pipeline ups and downs? What are those questions you can ask to qualify the deals and avoid wasting time? Deal validation techniques as a leader to make sure your pipeline is fact-based, and then interactive questions, polls throughout so you can learn from your peers. And Brian, I want to tee it up to you because you know this topic better than anybody. What are you seeing today with the pipeline? And has anything changed this year compared to the past, or is it still the same thing?
Well, I mean, the good part of a pipeline is you're breaking your sale down into stages, which gives you a little bit of insight into where it is. The problem that we have is that all the qualification is outside looking in, and it's completely confirmation bias. We see what we want to see, we hear what we want to hear, and we ignore the rest. Why don't we do the opposite? Why don't we do the stage by where the client is, where the deal is, and understand that, because that's what matters. Our opinion is an opinion. What we want to do is find out where the deal is and how to get it closed so that we can prevent ghosting. You can't really repair ghosting. It's really hard. You can prevent it though. You can prevent no decision. Really hard to repair it. And what it comes down to are these tough conversations. And if you stay to the end and you have a deal that you think is in closing and you want to know if it's going to close in the next 2 weeks, I'll show you how.
Learn from the great one himself. That's a good reason to stay as well. So we have a ton of questions coming through the chat. Brad and team are going to help navigate those, and we're going to tee those up when appropriate. So appreciate all the engagement so far. We're going to get into a couple slides, no death by PowerPoint, but we have a few slides we want to share with you guys throughout this journey. And I'm going to share a quick story before we get to our featured speaker. Can you guys see the screen? All righty. So I learned a tough lesson with the pipeline several years ago when I first transitioned to commission sales. And I was trying to make a name for myself. I was trying to stand out. And I had a really good opportunity. I had some pretty good technical champions, a couple business champions, and I got a little overconfident. And basically, what happened is I ended up having $1 million deal in the pipeline. When I showed up at the sales kickoff, when I showed up at the QBR, I was the life of the party. You know, I had that $1 million deal in the pipeline. It was a strategic new product. Everybody wanted to talk to me. It was like, awesome, I have this great deal. Then I started realizing, this brings a lot more pressure to me, to my leaders on the sales side. I had marketing asking me a million questions about the timeline and all these different things. And I started to realize that, I maybe overestimated betting on myself. Maybe it really wasn't $1 million deal. And it was way more of a complicated implementation. And the champions weren't quite as strong as I thought. So it ended up being a 50K deal, not the worst, but the air just drained, right? I wasn't as cool. I had the 50K deal instead of $1 million deal. I felt like a little stupid. Like don't want to make that mistake again. And the lesson that I learned is that chasing deals that you're never going to close is really where the most burnout, the most money lost, the most time spent. And if you're constantly chasing those deals that never close, it's going to be really hard to be successful in sales. And sometimes it takes a tough lesson. But my point is for this is learn from my mistake, learn from what we're talking about today for you and your team. And ultimately you have to be real with yourself, with the pipeline, be accountable with yourself. It's going to save you a ton of stress and heartache later down the road. So really take notes today. We're going to send recaps of a lot of this, but there's going to be some fantastic wisdom throughout this, and looking forward to it. So on that note, it's great to hear from your peers, and we have a special featured guest today, Stephanie Joyce. She is with Commvault. She's the AVP of Sales and Demand Gen. She's out of West Palm, Florida. Not a bad place to be, for sure. She is really active on LinkedIn, so I have her LinkedIn here for you guys to follow her. and has a lot of great posts around cold calling and leadership, etc. She's part of Pavilion as an executive member, and Commvault specifically has grown quite a bit the last few years, but her team has grown by 7x the last 3 years. So I believe in people count as well as revenue, pretty phenomenal growth, which I'm sure also brings a lot of pipeline challenges as well. So she's going to bring some insight about what she's learned along the way, a couple tips that might help other sales leaders out there. So go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me. So as Dustin said, I have had the privilege to lead this amazing team for 3 years, and I was brought to Commvault actually to start a new version of the business. If you're in cybersecurity, you might have heard of us before. We've been around for 27 years. But it's been a solution that for 27 years was really an enterprise type solution. It was exclusive to imagine like the Fortune 5000. And about 5 years ago, my CEO had a vision where he wanted to take the product and create a SaaS version of it. Originally, it had been like software perpetual. And so in doing so, they realized that the SaaS could then open up the market to SMB mid-market. And at that point, they didn't really have a team in place to do it. So I was recruited on and started with 8 people, and now we're up to over 60. The first year we did 100K in sales, and we just cleared the year at a little north of 11 million. So it's been a wild rocket, to say the least, of growth. Definitely have learned a lot of frustrating challenges and problems along the way, and had to learn past them and figure out new things. Pipeline is always going to be, I'd say, the crux of any sales leader, but I don't think anyone will ever handle it perfectly. It's like utopia and it doesn't exist, but we put a lot of practices in place to try to get it narrowed down as quick as possible.
Stephanie, you mentioned, I think what was it, the 4 whys and
Yes,
something you
yeah.
do with some of the pipeline review. Is that something that has been beneficial for you to like really dive deep into the deal or the pipeline with your team?
Yeah, definitely. So we implemented something about a year ago, and for every serious deal, we have to have the reps and their leaders back up. 4 different things: the why now, why Commvault, why do anything, and then why would we lose? If you ask those 4 reps or 4 questions to your reps, and then I would say the biggest red flag is if they can't answer any those questions, or they can answer 3 of 4, then you know that you've got probably a situation on your hands that it's not really a real deal. Or if you land it, it's going to be because it fell into your lap, not because you did anything to actually earn it correctly. But then on the flip side is that watch those answers of how they answer. A lot of times where the why now and then why do anything will tell you a lot about how much they understand about the deal. Um, why Commvault for us is going to be a little bit more like, why are they picking us over a competitor or a competitive type of solution? But then the why would we lose will actually, in my opinion, tell you the most. And that's why I love having it as a question to ask, because it forces the reps to put themselves in the glass half empty situation. And I think as sales reps in general, we always want to be looking on the bright side of things. And Brian said it. I use a term for it called hope casting, right? Instead of forecasting, they're hope casting. And if you think about it, they're always trying to like spin the story of why does their pipe look so good? Why is the deal looking so good? And by asking those questions, but specifically though, why would we lose? It's gonna turn on the devil's advocate side of their brain. It brings up and forces them to be negative on themselves and really dig into that. So some will give you a surface level answer, some will really dive in. But I find that when you get to that 4th question, you start to see the real kernel of truth. And then as leaders, obviously, then we have to go in and solve for the why would we lose? What do we need to help enable with them? What do we need to fix in the solution? Maybe we need to dive into the deal to go protect and save the why would we lose. So yeah, if you steal it, want to put it in there, it will help. I think not going to solve your pipeline, but it can take off the initial layer of the glamour of the hope cast.
Love that hope casting. And quick follow-up question. I think we might have a few from the chat, but you mentioned that glass half empty, devil's advocate. It can come off a little negative sometimes. How do you balance like being positive, but also being realistic with that deal, Stephanie?
Um, how do you balance it? It's tough because I think you're gonna have to, first off, I think if you should know your team, right? And what I mean by that as well is like if you have a new rep that doesn't know anything about anything, you have to obviously understand like it's going to be more surface level of their own understanding versus if your rep has been with you for over a year, then you also are going to understand, are they a sandbagger? Are they a hopecaster, right? You have that kind of authority of understanding their personality. But I don't want to be a naysayer because like theoretically you'd have zero pipe, right? If you had to not be negative on everything. But what it's going to force you to do on my balances is if you hear the facts out of it, it strips out the BS out of the pipeline. And that's where I find a lot of times, like I've had one of the biggest curses, I think, if at least I've seen it historically, is you get to the end of the quarter, which I'm in the end of the quarter right now with 2 weeks to go. And you're looking at, your strong up, for example, or your upside deals, and you've got 5x still of your number left in those two buckets. And we all know that when the day ends on the end of the quarter, you're lucky if you clear 15% of that, right? My thing is how do you chop that out ahead of time? So what my goal is as a leader is every single quarter, I'm getting sharper and sharper, that I'm turning on a little bit more of the negativity and not to be mean, but negativity. And somebody actually said like a pre-sales autopsy. It's sort of like that, but like get the deal out and go focus on the deals you can close. Because if you're chasing deals that have no chance of closing, then you're wasting time when you have so many X days to get down and actually make your target or exceed your target.
Well
I hope that
said. I agree. Let's see if there's any questions for you in the chat. I did give the why, the four whys to the audience, so I think that was very beneficial to them. As Stephanie wraps up here, put any questions you have for her in the chat, and we'll go back to that. Kelvin, go ahead.
Yeah, I love the why would we lose? Out of curiosity, Stephanie, even within the last 30 days, like what are some of the concrete reasons? What's acceptable that's not abstract or too generic? And what are some examples of the why we would lose? And as a sales leader, what do you think about being, preventative or proactive once you hear certain things in that when you ask that question?
For me, there's two things that are going to be, it's the decision criteria and then also the technical win. So decision criteria is imagine, so my personas are IT personas, and a lot of times the final decision has to go up to the CIO, to the CFO. If it's decision criteria and they're saying, well, my champion is the IT director, but they've got to go up and get approval from the CFO, and we've never talked to that person, I'm immediately gonna throw more risk on that deal because we have no line of sight into the champion. And as a leader, I'm either gonna say, do I need to myself go get executive alignment there? Or on the flip side is that, can I get my champion to buy in to create that bridge to get up there as well? So there's gonna be a moment for me that it's like, how much can I help influence the situation? I think we can also agree, like I buy a lot of tools. There's nothing worse when your team has been talking with the champion the whole time, and then at the last minute you try to bring somebody in. So de-risk this early on. Don't wait until your last week of the quarter to start to ask these questions. This is something that you need to be asking in the first month of your quarter, right? And then on the technical fit, a lot of times what I'm hearing is, and we have many competitors in this space, so just to clarify, right, is they're going to say, oh, they love this one part of the feature, but it ends up that they have this other compliance need that we can't hit off of it. So my mind's then going to, okay, they love what our GUI looks like, right? But if we can't hit this one compliance checkbox, then how on earth are we going to be able to be in need in a technical win for them? So those are the two biggest things that we're going to hear. I'll be frank, if anyone ever says that someone's ghosted on it, I always say like I move the deal out immediately because anybody that's not responding is not a real deal. And then on the flip side is as a last chance, I say, you can move it out a quarter, but you go send a breakup email. I call it the breakup email. And then it's like, hey, are we going to the dance or not? And if you can't get anything on that, if they respond, you can bring it back in. But if not, then it means obviously it's a dead deal. So
Appreciate that. Thank you, Stephanie.
somebody has, I'm just going to jump in because I saw it as somebody had asked and said, how do you ask these questions to your customer? I think it's a great question. I think you got to be upfront with them, but not say it. I think it lands really poorly. And I've heard it asked of me before is like, hey, I need to forecast this deal. Can you tell me if it's forecastable? Brian, you're laughing. It's happened.
I
Like,
need money.
I need money. What does that look like? Right. And I like the idea of being upfront because I'll be frank, one of the things that I get frustrated with in sales myself as being a salesperson for a really long time now is I feel like we're trying to always cover up that we're salespeople, right? Like how many times have you seen someone's profile? They're like, I'm a consultant, and like all these fancy words that they come up like. I'm very straight up. I'm in sales, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna try to be sneaky around the idea of what I need, right? Like we're here to do a transaction. And so I would say in the idea of honesty and truth, you also though need to like coat the situation smoothly. And so for me, for example, like a why now, why do anything? I was on a call with a customer yesterday and they need a 2-month POC and we're on the just like on the second proposal call, right? They had changed the scope of the deal. We're on our proposal call to kind of say like, okay, confirming this is what you need, but hey, it's my end of quarter. So of course I'm going to throw out a heck of a deal, right? And on that, I said, look, if I can get this deal for you and it's everything you need to do, can I get a PO from you by June 30th? And then it's like, pause, wait, and don't say anything. And he actually came back and said, actually, this is a heck of a deal. I can forego my POC situation in order for you to like, because this is such a sweetheart of a deal to get it done by end of quarter. But I'm very upfront with customers in fact, I was on a customer call last week and I said to them, I was like, hey, heads up, it's our end of quarter, June 30th. Do you think we can get this deal done by then? And they said, actually, if that's the case, like if you give me a good deal, I'll get it to you by next week. And he goes, I could imagine if I don't get the PO to you next week, you're going to be knocking down my door, right? And I was like, yeah, you betcha, dude, right? Because at the end of the day, I am a salesperson and that's what I'm going to be, harping for. On the flip side of that though is I've been on calls at the end of the, quarter. Imagine like you're on like week 10, 11, and I say, it's our end of quarter coming up in 3 weeks. Do we think we can get a deal done? That's where if they say anything to me of like no, honestly I can't, then I'm gonna shut down and like go find the next deal that can. Because me trying to chase somebody is like you're going to chase something that's a hope and a dream, right? And a lot of times, let's be frank, our sales reps are still forecasting those deals because they're like, they said there was a chance, and it's like there is no chance. Go do something else with your time.
Good. No, that was great. You crushed it, Stephanie, and I think you're going to stay with us. So
Yes.
keep an eye on that chat because you got some great questions.
I see
And
that. I'll type my answers out on that for that. So we
yeah,
can
there was a few questions for you in there. We're trying to keep up with it. It's good. We have a ton of interaction. So if you can try to answer some of those ones too, I think they want an example of your breakup email. If you can, if you're willing to share that, and some other people are chiming in. But thank you so much. You crushed it, and thanks for staying with us.
I will grab the breakup email and I'll respond to the messages now.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, Brian, wanted to hand it back to you. And we're going to do another poll here going into it, but anything that stood out from what Stephanie said, or maybe that you saw in the chat
Sure.
before we get into that poll?
Let's go through it because Stephanie gave a couple of case studies where you're talking to a champion who has zero budget authority. Okay. They have urgency, but they have little political power and almost zero administrative knowledge, meaning that they don't know how to get it done. And we're looking from the outside and what we can manipulate to get them to move. So you have the technical sale, but you don't have the business sale. And what's the commission on a technical sale? Anybody ever got comped on a technical sale? They picked us. Congratulations. Where's the order? Oh, it's in procurement, right? Have you ever heard it's in procurement? Okay, what does that mean? Depends who says it. So what do? We want the deal. We don't want just the technical sale. So we have to get the meeting with the economic buyer. In Stephanie's case, CIO, CEO. CFO says no 100% of the time. Why? Because they have no involvement. You have to go up, not across. Okay. When you hear CFO, that's somebody who not really sure how to get this done. Why does the CIO want to meet with you? To talk about features, functions, and the user interface and all your integrations? No. They want to talk about price, availability, competition. How do you force that meeting? What do they want? Don't give a quote. You giving the quote is why not write no decision on the quote and send it to them? Because now you've given all the power to them. And what's the expiration date? Last day of the quarter. And when will they call you? If they're going to buy, last day of the quarter. Tighten it up. You got to understand how companies buy. We all know how to sell. And the challenge, because I sold into IT for 30 years, engineers have this view of the world. I need it, you go get it. They don't think about how the company makes decisions. They don't care. I need it now. And if I don't have it now, you're going to have to suffer through this. So before you send a quote, are you sending a quote to the economic buyer? The economic buyer is determined not by status, but by predefined authority. Calvin is the CEO of this company. Doesn't mean he can spend all the company's money. He has to talk to somebody.
Yep.
Right? And guess what? Did they say yes or no? No, they talk to each other. And you have to go with a business case. You just can't say, hey, I got a great idea. Rubber stamp this. No. They say, like, write up a plan. Why are we doing this? What's in it for us now? Why now? Why you? All of these questions get requested. Now, what we do in business, we put all our confidence in a champion. Well, I put too much confidence in champions who were engineers. And they said it's in procurement. And I asked this question, what's the purchase request number? And they said, what's that? And I go, how can it be in procurement if you haven't entered into the purchase request system? And they don't know. So what we're doing in sales is we're on the outside with MedPick and Bant thinking that this is going to tell us how to close a deal. This is showing us ingredients that are missing in a deal, and they're all self-reported. You can't get a purchase request number without someone entering a purchase request. We have to teach our clients how to buy because we have 2 weeks left. And procurement usually has 4 weeks to issue the PO. Why not call up procurement and get established as a vendor? If you're a new vendor to them, that's 3 or 4 days of delay just doing that. And here's the secret. Once you have the purchase request number, you know who's working on it. You know who the economic buyer is. Because the economic buyer is based off of sign-off. Now, Calvin can buy stuff without talking to the board, but it's limited and it's probably in the corporate documents of what he can do and what he can't do. And I've been a VP and I could buy nothing other than what I could put on a corporate credit card or expense. So in sales, we've got to understand these things to understand where a deal is. Okay? Because until it's financially approved, the business sale hasn't really been completed or done. So if we want to talk about a particular deal that you have at the end of the quarter and try and come up with these stages, because we all have the negotiation stage, self-reported. Reps put, we're at the negotiation stage when we send the proposal. Well, you're negotiating with someone who has no authority to negotiate. We're hoping that they will. We're wishing that they will. And it may be enticing enough. And if your product is well understood and they're going to buy it anyway, they will take that discount and run with it. But what if they hit a wall? What if this is the first time that they are showing this proposal to the economic buyer? And what I've seen is this pattern of 3 times the charm, where they want to buy it, they need to buy it, it makes economic sense, but it just gets delayed, no decision. Because the economic buyer hears about it for the first time. What is this? Why are we doing it now? Did you do your due diligence? Doesn't have Salesforce have something like this? Isn't Microsoft working on something like this? And all of a sudden your deal dies. Your champion doesn't know. You sent them the proposal. They have no reason to talk to you. They don't want to give bad news. Everybody wants a breakup email to find out what the hell happened. I'm telling you what happened. This is what's happening internally. MedPick isn't going to tell you this. Bant isn't going to tell you this. We have to learn this. So how do we learn it, Brian? Well, you have to study it. Go down to your CFO and ask that person, how do we buy stuff? Let's say I want to spend $50K on some security stuff that I really think we need. I feel insecure. How do I get this approved? Can you just buy it? And he'll laugh at you. He goes, no, you got to fill out a purchase request. You got to put a justification. Go talk to your manager who can spend $5K without anyone's approval. Then go to the CIO who can spend $10K without anything being budgeted. Maybe he can steal the budget from something else. Maybe he has a nice, big, juicy security budget. But if he doesn't, has to go to the CEO. And the CEO doesn't understand this stuff, right? He's not going to understand the two-phase commit and the two-factor authentication and not going to understand it. So you have to put it in business terms for them. This is what we got to do as sales. And what we end up doing is delegating this to our champion who has a personal win in it or better. Otherwise, they're going to give up. They're going to have the opinion of, if the company doesn't want to do this, why should I stick my neck out? And let's face it, how many conversations have you had with your boss's boss, with your CEO? And imagine bringing a piece of paper there that cost $100,000 or whatever you sell and explaining why this has to happen in the next 2 weeks. And if you're not comfortable doing it, now you understand why the champion isn't comfortable doing it.
Appreciate
That's
that,
my
Brian.
rant.
Yeah, no, it's a good rant. It was a good rant. We're all just taking notes here and looking at the chat. We got a lot of questions that came in. I think there's some official ones in the Q&A that we will save for the last 10 minutes. Brad, let's do that poll and then maybe find a question or two for Brian specifically. But the poll we want to put up is, what percent of committed deals in the pipeline are stalling? Right now it's Q2, it's fresh, so you should probably know what's going on. And then Brian, let's see if I can find you a specific question from the chat that okay, this most recent one's pretty good from Amelia, I believe. Amelie. She said, how do you navigate consensus buying when 20 or more stakeholders are involved in the decision?
First, out of the 20, one matters. Find that one person. The 19 are for distraction. Shipping and receiving probably doesn't matter. Standards and practices probably doesn't matter. Legal's probably in there. They'll matter eventually. But somebody wants this. Who is it and why? The company doesn't want it. The company is not voting on the next product. They don't care. Somebody has to care because somebody has to run the gauntlet of getting this done, which is no fun. And that's why so much stuff goes to no decision. This focusing on the panel is just a distraction on both sides. Find out who is that persona who typically cares about your product, who has the problem that you solve, and get to talk to them. Everybody else is nice, but not involved.
Brian, I'm just going to say too, is a lot of sales reps immediately think the person with the highest title is going to be the person that cares the most. And that is the most dangerous mistake they can make.
Yes.
A lot of times the person that's going to care the most is going to be the end user or the person
Yes.
above them.
Yes.
A lot of times when people are trying to sell to me, they go straight to my CRO, who I work for. And trust me, you're in the wrong area.
He doesn't see it as a problem. Just
No,
work harder.
exactly. Yeah.
And then it also can, not always, but Stephanie, you might be like, well, why didn't you come talk to me? You're going to try to talk to my CRO. So then it presents that battle too, right?
Yeah, and I will say to say one more thing is a lot of times people will send stuff to my CRO and he sends it to me. He says, "Hey, can you take a look at this?" And that is fair play. I say yes, you should do those things, especially for demand gen. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to stay engaged on it for me. He's going to rely on me as the day-to-day leader to see if it's a technical fit.
Stephanie, do you mean that in terms of like pipeline creation or during an actual deal they're working on with you?
All of the above, I would say, in terms of, I'll use when we purchased Brevity as an example, was you guys actually, one of my reps found Brevity, right? It wasn't, and they brought it up to me and said, "Hey, you need to look at this." There was a quick engagement with my CRO because he holds the paycheck, and I had to go to him and say, "Hey, we're looking at doing this. This is the expected ROI out of the solution. Do you have any questions on this? This is what we're looking to do and how we're going to get out of it, etc." Had to get a proposal to him. He saw it, he checked off, he said, "Yep, go for it." And that's how it got done. So at some point he was involved, but and my rep loved it and my CRO was a fan, but if I had said this is a waste of money, my CRO would have never seen it. And then I would have never purchased it. And then I'll say one more thing is like my CRO brought me an agentic AI tool probably 6 months ago that was for demand gen and said, "Hey, someone told me to look at this. Will you dive and take a look?" Took a demo, had a meeting. It was really cool, but I said, this just isn't going to be a fit for our org, right? So even though he had brought it to me and made a recommendation, I know the day to day and how it impacts the team. And that's where is like, I'm the secret champion in that. But a lot of people will they see his title and they immediately want to go shoot to him. And, he's going to know, but that doesn't mean that he's got the money in the know, but not the final decision probably on that.
Yeah, I think it's smart to have that executive sponsor, have them in the loop early on, but then you still have to work with the right people to get it done. And then if you are a good leader, you're not going to make a decision for your team. You want them to feel part of it, do the full diligence, that something that they want and really need. So the days of that happening don't seem to be very often anymore, and they really empower those people underneath them. So that was great. We have some awesome questions. I think we're just going to keep rocking out the Q&A because there's a ton of those questions. So we might go a little bit past the 45 minutes, but I think we stayed pretty steady at 200 people. So it looks like you guys are enjoying the content. A couple things to note on the pipeline question that we did to the audience. The majority of people, 60% said that 50% of their pipeline is getting stalled at the end of the quarter. So everything we're talking about seems to be pretty realistic. We actually had a stat that we thought, close to half of the pipeline with our clients was getting stalled and not realistic. So it looks like that's pretty accurate from the audience. So I want to call that out. So this is a very relevant topic. Go ahead, Brian.
Can we do a yes or no poll? Did the stall happen immediately after you sent the quote? Yes or no? Have you talked to them after the quote has been sent on those stall deals? Yes or no? I think I don't need a poll. Look at the answers.
Yeah, they're coming in
Okay, now
hot on
let's
the.
go back this. Now, make sure this is being recorded. The reason it stalled is because you sent the quote. It stalled because they have no need for you now. They have everything they need from you. Now they have to sell it internally. So before you send the quote, you have to have a very difficult conversation with them. And Stephanie gave a perfect example, a trial close. It's like, what's your manager going to think about this when they see this? If I send this over, what are you going to do with it? What's the process? Have you ever marshaled a quote through the system before? What was it like? What does the CEO think of this, who's probably going to get involved in anything over 50K with a new vendor? You prevent the stall, you don't repair it. I know you're going to send all the breakup emails, and maybe they'll tell you, yeah, my manager doesn't want to do it yet, or has higher priorities, or there's no budget. Well, you can ask all those questions before you send it over. Say, maybe we're not ready for a proposal yet. Let's make sure, have you picked us to the exclusion of every other product, including doing nothing? Well, we could do nothing. That's what they're going to do. Nothing. And now they won't talk to you. Don't send proposals. And don't send proposals with discounts to people who can't commit to them. The discount is in exchange for two things: committing to getting it done by a date and pushing back on procurement who wants to delay it, add more discount, and get more pricing from other competitors that they have personally committed to marshal it through the procurement process. Without that, it's like putting a little wish in a bottle and throwing it in the ocean. You don't have control over it.
There's been a ton of questions in the chat as you were speaking, Brian. Someone asked about the refrain from sending a quote. I think, something we do, we won't go deep into it today, but instead of a quote or proposal, we have something called a business justification. It's meant to be a working document, something you bounce back and forth with your champion and client. It's in their words. It's a one pager, maybe two pager, one source of truth of why they would do it now. How is it helping them? What does the timeline look like? What are the core outcomes with the schedule? And it's very simple. I mean, I create some badass PowerPoints and awesome proposals, but no one ever looks at it, I'll be honest with you, which is painful. But having a simple 1-2 pager business justification is something that we see as an alternative to the quote or proposal. There's going to be variances by industry for sure, depending on your deal size and deal cycle, but that's something that we use at Brevity and with a lot of our clients as well. Brian, real quick, I saw RFP question. I can't remember who it was because we have so many messages coming in, but they basically, I think they were selling appliances, furniture, and they get stuck in the RFP process a ton. And I know that's a painful thing for a lot of industries. What's your thoughts on RFP or how to avoid it, how to get ahead of it?
Well, unless you've been involved already or you're the low-cost provider, you need to have a conversation with them to see it's even worth responding to the RFI, RFP. And if they aren't willing to do that, then it's your gamble. Is it worth the 1 in 1,000 chance of winning to fill this thing out? I think too many people look at that as a deal. That's someone else's deal. It's your job to now turn it into your deal. And responding to the RFP most likely is not going to turn it into your deal because they didn't create this on their own. They didn't pull it out of the air. They've been talking to somebody. And now each procurement officer needs to get 3 quotes to justify that or a sole source justification to fill the file up so that they don't get in trouble with the auditors.
That's probably painful for a lot of people to hear that because they've been chasing a lot of RFPs, but
Well,
appreciate.
I mean, what you get an RFP, what's the first thing goes into your head? It's a deal. That's because
Put it in the
you want
pipeline.
it to be a deal, not because it is a deal. You're just doing someone else's admin work.
No doubt. All right, we're at 45 minutes, but it's been great interaction. We've stayed pretty strong with over 170, so we're going to add another 10 or 15 minutes with all the questions. Kelvin, on that note, I know we had a couple things with you, just real quick, from your perspective. You know, that fog of war we're talking about. I think when you get so consumed with the deal, and it happens to the best of us, you get blind spots. You don't see what's going on. You do things that you maybe normally wouldn't do, and you're just so entrenched you can't get out of it. And sometimes you need a leader like yourself or a good counterpart to put you in check and ask some tough questions. Is there a couple things that you've been doing as CEO or with your leadership to try to encourage some of those tough questions?
Yeah, so I think we did a good job of talking about what we do in our pipeline meetings. I like to shift gears and talk about how we've changed the closed loss reporting. At other companies I've been at, when it comes to closed loss, it's an opportunity for the account executive to blame the company on what features they don't have. It's an opportunity to blame, oh, the competitor discounted their price too low, or it's an opportunity to blame the prospect. And I don't see a lot of what I call being a salespreneur, got this for Brian, and really taking that personal accountability. So one of the biggest ways that we've shifted it is speaking to, there's two mandatory fields when we lose a deal or it gets stalled. Number one, did we lose to no decision? Did we get ghosted? Did we lose to a direct competitor? And then after that, we have these 13 traps for everybody that has stayed to the end. We'll be able to send you this playbook, but did we lose to the commodity trap? Did we lose to being single threaded? And now it forces that personal accountability. So, and then we leverage that to actually create what we call conversation drills that are these 5-minute micro moments. But it's a way for us to really get personal accountability. And, my dad always taught me, you point the finger, there's typically 3 pointing right back at you. So that has been a really good way for us to really build more rep accountability into the closed loss reporting. And that's been pretty powerful for us.
Yeah, it's not fun digging into the closed loss report. You want to look at the deals that we won, but doing that post-mortem and asking the tough questions and being accountable as a leader too. You need to be real with yourself, and the same things we're talking about for reps. You need to be doing that as a leader. So we got a bunch of questions in here. One thing I wanted to show y'all as we wrap up, we got about 10 minutes left. We'll leave a little bit more time for Q&As. So as leaders, we need to be asking these questions. We need to be doing the coaching. We need to be doing all the stuff that we've been talking about. But it's hard, right? We don't have a ton of time. There's a lot going on. We get distracted, and there's only so much time you have if you have 10 or 15 people. So as you know, we have a role-playing software, but we just launched cell phone-based role play where you can now get them straight to your phone. So what I'm going to show you guys is actually having Brian Burns in your back pocket. If you're a leader, if you're a rep, and you don't have a
What a
ton of
joy.
time to, what's that?
What a joy.
Yeah. I mean, it's good and bad, but if you're trying to beat up some deals, I'm not going to go call Brian about maybe where I'm going to work out or what I'm doing for the weekend, but for deals, for sure. I mean, I can tell you if I would have had Brian in my back pocket for a ton of deals the last 7 years, I probably would have closed like 50% more, and I maybe wouldn't even be on this webinar right now, just chilling at a beach somewhere. So, but for real though, there's only so much time we have. Now we have role play straight to your cell phone. It's all text based, SMS based. We don't even have an app. If you look at the number 1, 2, and 3 things that reps use, first off, it's email, then it's phone calls, and then it's texting. So trying to meet salespeople where they're at, they don't have to log in anymore, and it's all SMS text based. So I just pressed a quick button here. It's going to set up in the next 20 or 30 seconds. Brian, you can tell us how realistic uh, it sounds for
Oh, the
your
ladies
voice.
will.
What's that?
The ladies will.
There you go. Yeah, it's a good voice. I'm not gonna lie, it's a good voice. 24/7 access too. All right. So just text me back the details of what the role play is gonna be. It's a qualification call, and then it should be calling me shortly. There we go. So it says Brevity play there.
This is Brevity Play. When you are ready to begin role playing, Just start speaking and then hang up to finish.
I'm ready.
All right, let's dive in. We're working with Acme Corp on a deal worth $1.2 million, targeting their customer service platform upgrade. These players on the business side are the VP of Customer Experience, Sandra, and their CFO, Mark. On the technical side, we've got the head of IT, Raj, fully engaged. So what's the top concern you've got about moving this forward?
Yeah, hey Brian, good to see you as always. And I know we've talked about this deal a couple times, and I appreciate you being on top of it. So I have two technical champions right now, as you mentioned, and I have one business decision maker. My fear is that there isn't a ton of urgency, and I might be a little overconfident these last couple of months. We just finished the pilot, and I'm trying to get this bigger deal, but I don't know if I really have urgency. What do you think?
Great point. That elusive piece. From what I'm seeing, Sandra's all fired up, improving the customer experience. They've been drowning in complaints lately, so that's our number one pain right there. CFO Mark, on the other hand, is more cautious, focused on ROI and cost savings, so he's the gatekeeper we need to keep close. On that note, where I see potential sticking points is around their budget cycle ending next quarter. If we don't push urgency now, we risk missing that window. Currently nudging those folks on their timeline.
So I have recurring calls with the group. I think I probably need some more one-on-one calls with some of the technical champions because I think there's one naysayer that I haven't really focused on. So that's been good, but I need it's based on this new product launch that they have coming up in September, but I don't have exact dates. So I need to get some exact dates from them. And I think I maybe need to neutralize that naysayer. How would you recommend doing that if I have someone that's maybe not fully bought in?
Straight up, the concerns are, and listen, really listen. Often those naysayers have valid points, or at least misunderstandings that you can clear up. Have you tried enlisting one of your champions, maybe Raj or Sandra, to help bring that naysayer over to the light side? Sometimes peer influence beats anything we say.
That's great. That's a great idea. I will do that for sure. I'm writing notes down as we speak and trying to get them to influence that naysayer. And then I think getting a one-on-one would be very helpful for me because I can hear more about their story and make them feel part of it. Last thing I have for you, because I got to run to this meeting, is the outcome. I'm trying to show ramp up. I think I can shave about 30 days off of ramp up for their new hires that are coming up. How do you think I should show that to them and make it realistic?
Yep, showing measurable ramp-up time reduction is gold, no question. I'd say get some solid data from your pilot, before and after metrics if you have them, then translate that into real-world impact, like how it speeds hires to full productivity or reduces training costs. You want to frame it tight. Here's how cutting 30 days off ramp means quicker customer resolution and less drag on resources. And get a quote from a happy pilot user or Raj backing that up. That's credibility that resonates better than just numbers alone. How's your data collection looking on that front?
You're the man, Brian. I love that idea with the data collection. I actually got to run to a meeting right now, but I will call you tonight, actually. I think, maybe after 9 o'clock, that would be a good time to give you a shout and I can recap this. But thanks so much, Brian. We'll talk soon. All
I
right.
think I
Hopefully you guys
sound
can hear
better.
that. But Brian, now I have Brian 24/7 in my back pocket, my personal deal coach, which is fantastic. Brian, how did it sound? Was that pretty close to you or no?
A little work, I think. It sounded good. I don't know what my
Awesome. All
voice
right.
sounds like.
Yeah, no, you got good voice, but appreciate you guys. Let me go through that. I cut it a little bit short, but obviously, deal coaching on the go as we all have limited time. So that's pretty cool. And then cell phone now, we're excited about that. But we got about 5 minutes left. We have some great questions, I'm sure, in the chat. Brian, Kelvin, Stephanie, has there been any good questions I missed that maybe we want to bring up and talk through?
I was trying to reply to the chat and I realized that we can't reply to it. So if you have any questions, you can ask it in the Q&A and I can respond. But there was one that I was finding and I was typing it. Hold on. And someone had asked about that they were struggling with, oh geez, it was Matt. Hold on one second. There were so many on here, which is really good. I wrote it down, I think. They had said, oh, they added the biggest challenge as a sales rep is finding out my champion is not the final decision maker too late in the sales process. I saw this and I was like, yes, I think this is so valid. So one I would say is if you get to the end and then you don't realize who your decision maker is, it's understood. This is where a lot of people, unfortunately, I think will fail on this. So when you're talking to your initial person, and I typically do this on the discovery call because it's a very easy time. Let's be frank, like they know they're going to get pelted with questions. So this is when your time, it's like more leniency to ask that. If you're already at the proposal call, I feel like a lot of times it kind of insults them to say like, hey, I just showed everything to you. Now who else should I care about? Right. So in the discovery call, I have two ways that I normally say it, which is when you've evaluated solutions like this in the past, who else is involved in making the final decision? And like, so when you evaluated products like us or solutions like us or whatever that is in the past, who else is involved in making the final decision, right? And then on the flip side is, and then say, okay, if you love it and you want to buy it, where do we go from here, right? What is the process next? Because I think Brian said it too, like if that person's like, hey, I'm going to grab it and then I got to run it up the stack or whatever, then you can ask more qualifying questions there. But if you could ask one of those two things, if you ask both of them, whatever it is, it'll tell you typically where the chain of events are. I've had it before I've asked that. And then also the good person goes, I don't know, I'm new, I don't know. Dude, that's a dead deal right there. Like it died in that second, right? It's not to say you won't get it later, but until if they're so new, they don't even know how to buy. I mean, they're window shopping, right? So I don't know if Brian, if you would anything else
Well,
to say. No.
there's different decisions. The
Right.
decision to look at the product is the end user. Let's take your selection of Brevity. It was an end user who championed it to you. And
Yeah.
you needed to champion it to the CRO. Okay. But who was the final decision? Well, he's the economic decision maker. But if you said no, what would have happened? It would have been dead. So your champion is probably the person who gets the most benefit from the product. They make the technical decision, your product or someone else's, or do nothing. They have to make that decision. But the economic decision is revealed by the cost because that is the sign off. And usually, if it's above 5K, it's going to be above the first line manager. And then the manager above that may have budget that they can allocate, but if they can't, it then has to go higher. And your champion doesn't know this sometimes. And they don't want to know it because it's hard and it's painful and it's error prone. And this is what causes is there really no decision? No, your champion wants your product, but they can't convince the economic buyer why it makes economic sense and why now, why change. And it usually is a no because think about, kids going to you about your vacation. The first time you hear about it, it's an automatic no. Hey, can we go to Disneyland? No, not this year. Right? Then you go, okay, hey, I mowed the lawn and I got an A- in algebra, and there'd be nothing better than spend time with my family. How about going to Disney World? You got to build it up. It's like, it's the same human nature that's going on inside companies that we as salespeople typically don't have privy to, especially when we're selling remote. And our champion is working remote. It's just so error prone that we have to mitigate those errors by guiding them through that process, not servicing it.
I agree. One more thing. Everyone keeps saying this, and I think it's really relevant. My husband actually is in construction and he deals with RFQs all the time. And everyone's asking how this applies to that. It's not going to be the exact same thing. But what I will say is a lot of times there is a human behind the process, right? And we forget that. And if you're dealing with RFQs, what you need to do is understand who is that human behind the process. It's either for my husband, he owns an AC company. And so he's bidding out to GCs or he's bidding to school boards or whoever it is that's going to be some type of like mega owner contractor. In that case, something actually when I first met him 10 years ago was I said to him, I was like, you need to go establish relationships, right? So your demand gen you can't let up on responding to RFPs, RFQs, especially if that's the main way that you're procuring your business. But you need to shift your demand gen instead of just going regular like B2B or whatever that looks like. You need to go form relationships with whoever those people are. If it's school boards, if it's GCs, the same way that I prospect my B2B customers, you need to go become friends with the people at the GCs or the estimation or whatever it is and create that bond there. And then that is your way in the door, because now it's set up 10 years later after I've been with my husband. He has a network of people that the next RFP that comes out, he's going to get word about it before everybody else is. So if you keep submitting RFPs, RFQs, I see this with a lot of people for construction, they're saying like, I'm never hearing anything back because you have no relationship, right? I think a lot of times we are so removed sitting behind our computers and we're thinking this is the new world. We're just going to respond to a quote or whatever. But we forget that like everybody needs interaction. You need the human. So go create the human in the RFP, in the RFQ. Brian, anything else you wanted to add on? Sorry.
Nope, that's great.
Okay.
No, yeah, I was looking back at the chat. There was a lot of construction people, so I'm glad you
Yes.
went back to that. Or industrial. Yeah, I mean, in general, industrial manufacturing, construction, that's a huge market for sales. So we have a lot of clients in that area. Brian, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was
Go
gonna
ahead,
say I'm on
yeah.
LinkedIn. If anyone wants to send me a message, I'm happy to talk with people more. So
Yeah, SaaS and construction, you can go multiple industries. That's great.
I got 2
So
levels. I'm ready.
there you go. There you go. No, I think today was great. We appreciate all the interaction, and we stayed pretty strong around 190, 200 people the entire time, which was phenomenal. And then we went a little bit long. We'll probably change it to an hour in the future, but we do this for everyone. And then the ones that stayed till the very end, as we said, we have a special thing that we want to give you. We got about 115 still, Kelvin. So real fast, if you want to show them, actually, I got a slide for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sales trap prevention playbook. We have the list of emails. We'll be sending you that on Audible, and also Kindle of Full Part 1, Part 2. But we're going to give you Part 3 that gets into the root of all of the 13 traps, the prevention strategies, talk tracks, really getting into the weeds of conversation strategy, tactics, and talk tracks that have worked well for us at Brevity, and see if it's relatable to your industries.
Boom. So a ton of value today. You got to hear from Stephanie as a featured speaker. Brian answered at least 7 or 8 questions from the group. And we continue to do these every month. We'll have a theme very similar to this that is spot on with what you're looking for. And then look out for the sales trap prevention playbook that you'll get from our team. So we appreciate everyone, and we will see you next month.
See you later, everybody.